It's exciting to have you all come. I've wanted to do this program for many years and put together the handout. The handout is a result of 40 years of research. Up until a few years ago, there was very little available on Irish research. I'm sure you all have found that to be true. If you come into New Orleans and you go to the Historic New Orleans collection and ask to see their hoard of Irish information, they say we don't have any. And so while the Irish in New Orleans are great storytellers, they know the history for 300 years verbally, they just don't write anything down. We're lucky now that Dr. Laura Kelly at Tulane has put together this beautiful book, and I think she's working on book number 2. It's a great New Orleans history. It covers a lot of stuff that I think is important, and I highly recommend it. Some of you will say, I can't afford this, I can't afford that, ancestry, whatever. Give it to yourself for Christmas. Make your kids pay for it and give it to yourself. Because it's anything that I recommend, any books I recommend on this handout, I have, and I highly recommend them. So tonight we're going to talk about common heroes. Many of us feel, because we have poor relatives who came from Ireland, that they don't generate anything. They're not queens and princes and into, economy, making money. They're just good, solid people who left Ireland to come here to get food and a job and have religious freedom. So they really are heroes. If you look at this ship, this is a replica. Am I going here? Of a famine ship from 1847. It was put together in 2002. Now, knowing all that you know about Ireland, about America, about jobs, would you get on this ship? Would you go back? Would you come this way? Weeks, months? It started out with just 20 and 30-year-olds who sent money back to Ireland. The Irish sent the most money of any ethnic group back to Ireland. And then as it got worse, you saw maybe 20 people in a family. Blind grandparents, mother and daddy, pregnant woman, their children, grandchildren, all coming. So it tells you how desperate the situation was. When they got to New Orleans, we're not good about putting into fact the wonderful history that we have, the yellow fever epidemic, the Irish Channel, the education system of the Sisters of Mercy, the political things that we have went on in New Orleans that involved the Irish, the orphanages, which is a whole idea by itself. It was like orphanage city because their parents all died. And so the Irish, I'm new to this. Okay, so in this slide, you see Margaret Hottery. If you've never read her book, I suggest that you read it. You can buy used copies. There are plenty of books in New Orleans about the Irish, but they're all out of print. The crucifix, the Celtic cross on the right, is out on where West End is, whatever the street is. Pontchartrain Boulevard, right. So the Irish have worked to put a dedicated area really for the Irish who died digging the New Basin Canal, 1830s. They died out there. And that's been nice, but to me, it's not nearly enough. On the top, you'll see Help Wanted. That's an actual Help Wanted sign that was in a store in New Orleans. And that was all over the country. There were so many Irish coming here. They were sick. They couldn't read. They couldn't write. My husband's own great-grandfather and a will for his wife. His name is there with all of his children, and his name has an X in it, which means he could not write his name. Even though he was a mature man, did very well as a cooper or barrel maker, and had all these children and grandchildren, he could not write his name because the English would not let him. get any kind of an education. This is Barney Keenan. This is his obituary. And the page in the middle is his sheet on Ancestry. And it tells you his name, his parents' name, his wife, the children, when they were born, where they were born. I push Ancestry a lot. It costs anywhere from free trial for 2 weeks up to $300 for a year. But you can get it 50% off, which I suggest always. And you can even, after you get all your work on your family, then go there and do the 2-week trial. So you don't get, and if you still can't afford it, it's free in the libraries. So you can go there. These are some of the books that you can find in the library. There's several of them. The one that I like a lot is the Search for Missing Friends from the Boston Pilot. That's the series on your right, and the Famine Immigrants. So if you like books like I do, you can come here and read through them. We also show our organization since 1960 has been putting together the Genesis. This is a quarterly publication. You say, I don't know if I'm going to name my people, I don't know. It's important because in here are the indexes for all the churches, baptisms and marriages, Catholic churches in New Orleans. This might be a help for you. This is a research guide to New Orleans Genesis. These are all the table of contents. So you can go through and read. You can just sit there in one afternoon and then copy any that you like. This is a big help. And maybe someone's already published the whole story of your family. Okay. This is more records on Bernard Keenan, the little box on the bottom. That is the naturalization cards. They're on microfilm at the main library, and that'll tell you when he came, where, and the date of his naturalization. Now, his naturalization there's steps. They came, got to watch the immigrant pattern, Canada, the East Coast, Vermont, New Orleans. As soon as they hit the United States, they signed up after 2 years with a declaration of intent to become a citizen. A couple more years, they got the certificate. His certificate comes in New Orleans. So you think, well, they all came to New Orleans. Well, that's a misconception. They didn't all come to New Orleans. A lot of them came to the East Coast, New York, Baltimore, Boston, and then they filtered through New Orleans, even going out to California. I like to, in Ancestry, on the left-hand side is a box, and these are all the filters. I like to go to family trees first, the census second. Why do I like the census so much? That's 1790 to 1950, and in 2026, the 1960 census will be out. I like to key on the 1900 census because it gives you the person you're looking for, the month and year that they were born, where they were born. It usually gives you the date they came to America, not necessarily New Orleans, but America, whether they're a naturalized citizen or not. It's very, very helpful. In this particular, this is a 1910 census for Barney Keenan, and it lists all his children and partners and the grandkids. And at the bottom, right in the middle, it says Miles McCabe. And this says he's a cousin to Barney Keenan. But when you scroll over, he says that he was born in Massachusetts. Now, we knew Miles McCabe came from Waltham, Massachusetts. So when I checked him and went back in the census in the Boston area, I find out that his grandmother was a Keenan living next door to her brother, a Keenan. And so that was the relationship to Barney Keenan. His people are all in Boston, marrying, dying, buried. So be very careful about assuming that because you're in New Orleans, everybody's going to be in New Orleans. The next one is one of the things that we have in New Orleans that other places don't have is the obituary card file. Is everybody familiar? Raise your hand if you're not familiar with that. Okay, some people. The obituary card file is on the 3rd floor in Louisiana Collection, the main library. And it's all these little cards, as you see up on the left hand. Wait, I'm not sure that's the right one. There, the left hand, it says all the Keenans. You just type in Evans, and it'll show you how many Evans deaths are reported in New Orleans area newspapers. Why is this important? Look at the bottom. The numbers run from 1 to 16. That times 10 is 160 people. That's a big family. If you've only got 1 or 2 pages of names, that's a small family. Always watch out for the brothers, the fathers, the people like that you're not normally going to look for, you know, because they're also part of your family. They also have a main library and online justice of the peace cards if they were married by a justice of the peace instead of a priest. The next one, okay, the Boston Pilot. The Boston Pilot was the newspaper that anybody could send in a query looking for their relatives. You have to think the communications were pitiful. And so they would all come here in different times and different ages, and then they couldn't find each other. So you could put a question in the Boston Pilot and you think, oh, my people are so poor and common, they couldn't possibly do that. But this is a query, and it says of Rose, Ellen, and Patrick Keenan, parish of Fork Hill, County Armagh. When last time heard from, they were in Piermont, New York. Information of them will be received by Bernard Keenan, care of Mrs. Julia Carey, Utarp Street, near the corner of Apollo, New Orleans. Very specific. They were trying to find the people. There, on the right-hand lower side is a letter from Valanislow that my friend Pat had on her family. And this woman is writing to her sister, and she tells about all the people they know in the town and how horrible it is, and thank you for the money. They always were writing back and forth. It seems ridiculous that they could write to Ireland and not have any money here, and they don't have any money there, and yet they were writing to each other. Above that is something from the newspaper, and this is 1844. And it says, this is an ad, arrangements for emigrating, persons desirous of sending for their friends to arrive here in the autumn can make arrangements by applying to John Toole. He gives his address. No, by giving the address of their friends, they will be written to and the day appointed for them to be in Liverpool to prevent the expense and detention that is so frequently imposed upon people in Liverpool. So it was business. Meeting the immigrants, giving them jobs. That's how the political scene got so big. Trying to protect them, having societies that that would do that to keep the spirit of Ireland alive. The next one are some alternative places that you might find your people. One of them is the history of the New Orleans Fire Department. It's a held book in major libraries. What's interesting about it is they took pictures of all the individual volunteer fire departments. So your relative's face could be at that fire department and his name's across the bottom. So you want to check that. The Golden Jubilee of St. Alphonsus Church, they had those little circles there. They have maybe, I would think, close to 100 pictures of people who were involved with St. Alphonsus at the time of their anniversary. This next slide, this is my family, the O'Haires. Niagara Falls, New York. The oral histories for Irish people are extremely important. They didn't have paper and pencils in Ireland, probably still don't in some cases. and they couldn't be educated. The English saw to that. And so they didn't write anything down, but they learned how to keep everything in their heads. And so that tradition has come down in my family, as well as they took a lot of pictures. The picture in the center is my grandmother and my grandfather. They came, their parents both came from Ireland. The picture below that is probably my grandmother and grandfather's wedding anniversary. They had 11 children, 3 died, and they had 8 who became adults. If you want to look closely at your pictures, this is very, very modern. The younger people in the family are in white, older siblings are in black. As my family has evolved, my grandfather was portly, very bald, very smart accounting. And then his son, Uncle Bart, as he aged, he turned into my grandfather. Then my father, as he aged, he was the youngest boy, he turned into my grandfather. So I know there's a bald, portly Irish guy in County Louth, Ireland. And when I see him, I'm going to know him. He's going to look like my family. This next is you can keep it very simple. People want to know, how'd you get started? Well, this is how I got started. 44 years ago, I made this book for my husband's 40th birthday. Nothing fancy, all photocopies of different things, military schools, where they lived. This is what got me started. And if you come to my house, this is a good thing that I have, because I'm not very good at putting the things in together at the end like you are, Casey. So Daddy sent me this narrative of what he was told as a young man. And it's just a few pages, handwritten. I treasure now because he is gone. And so he was telling the story about his great-grandmother, how she came with the 2 girls and her mother, and how she married John Patrick O'Haire. And it's a wonderful thing to have. So when you are going out to get oral histories, find the oldest people you can in your family and bring them something. Cookies, they love cookies and candy, you know. Bring them something and pump them. Take pictures. Do they have any photographs that you can take pictures right there and go home? Ask them to tell you about their grandparents. They might even know their great-grandparents. So you want old people that know this stuff. The next one, let's see, Irish records. These are Irish research books. The Irish records, I forgot to bring that one, but it's a very, very big book and money well spent. This one here. There's also, I can't see that far. One of 2 things, either tracing, is that what that says? Okay, this is the newest book, and it's tracing your Irish family history on the internet. Now, I could have handed out these at the door and you could have gone home and I wouldn't need to give this talk. But that's not what's happening here. You've got to do the work on your family before you sit around and look at different sites where the records might be. This is helpful. I'd read it now, put it away, and do your work, and then pick it up. Mr. Evans here tonight said that he hired somebody in the heritage centers. You've got to be careful with the heritage centers in Ireland. If you can get to the county or maybe the townland in the county, and they have a good heritage center like County Clare, then they could give you a report. But you don't want them to give you what you can get on the internet and have to pay for it. It can run from $250 to $600. And they'll just run around trying to find John O'Hare's in County Clare. And that's not what you want. You want to make sure you're getting something that you can't find for yourself. But I have a rapport anyway with them because it should be helpful to you. Ask them what databases they have. You know, they're not going to charge you to tell you that, I believe. But they can have information that, and if you look on the internet, like let's say County Clare Heritage Center, it'll tell you all the different kinds of information and databases they have. So you can get that in your living room. This is something that you probably don't know about. These are Ordnance Survey maps. The English, well, go back just a little. The records that you have from Ireland are not Irish records. They're English records. The English were in charge. They were taxing everybody. They were stealing the land. They were trying to put their people in. Then they threw the Irish out of Ireland. So the records that we have from Ireland are really English records. So they set this up where they would put these little boxes all over Ireland. So if you're County Clare, you can order this map number 71, and it'll send you the actual map, the Ordnance Survey map, and you'll get a much closer idea of what the area looked like, mountains and streams and things like that. It's very helpful. It's very interesting, actually, and not too expensive.
Where do you get ready to get those? How do you order?
Just everything's Google search. Ordnance Survey maps, Ireland, Google search. This is my friend Louis McFall is here tonight, and he has helped me with DNA, which is the best DNA to have. And he says the autosomal is male and female, and that's the best one to get and get it on sale. Below that is something that most people do not know exists, and it's called the BLOGLO. It's the land management records for people. Let's say your people came to Iowa, Nebraska. If they served in a war, they could get free land, 160 acres, or they could get cheap land. So they're on the right-hand side. These are all the Hogans, and exactly when they purchased that land or got that land, you could apply for it, and you had to put up a house, grow something, and in 5 years you could get the certificate. This is very common and easy to use. BLOGRO. And I've used it all over Iowa and Nebraska. So that's very, very helpful. A book, 1001 Things You Should Know About Ireland. I collect Irish history books, and this by far is the cheapest, best book you could give yourself. On the left, the penal codes. Starting in the 1600s, the British, well, they had conquered the Irish. And so their plan was to get rid of the Irish. They didn't really even want them as slaves, to get rid of the Irish and pull their people from Scotland and England and have them settle in Ireland and convert the Irish to the Church of England and English, and that was their plan for the island. So they had 27 laws that they passed, horrendous laws. No land, no animals, no school, no priests, no churches. Eliminate all of it. So you might ask yourself, well, wait a minute. So that was what they were living under. They basically, we would like to think they had a darling whitewashed cottage with a thatched roof and a dog and a horse. The truth was they suffered from cholera, diphtheria, other diseases. They had zero food except for potatoes, which then were bad. And they were living on the side of the road with their children and their grandparents and their parents. And they were starving to death, begging in town. And when they would go to town, the British arrested them for, if you're 15 years old and you picked somebody's pocket, 7 years to Australia. The father, you know, if you stole turnips, you're out, 7 years to Australia. They didn't care. If you were in the rebellions, they just executed you, hung you. I had something from County Louth, which was my family's county. And in the back of the microfilm was the story of a priest and two young men who had to go into some kind of service. So they snuck away in the bushes and they were blessed and had mass in the bushes. Well, they were caught. So the British crucified them on the way to town upside down and wouldn't let the people take them down. Now, this is an actual factual account of what life was like. It was horrible. It was horrible. So how did they get from no money and sickness and no husband because he's in Australia? How did they get on a boat and come to Canada and America? And it was because the some counties like Galway, the people who were in charge of Galway were paying a tax for the poorhouse. And so they said, well, this is stupid. I'm paying this every year. I'll just pay their ticket to get them out of here. So it was really euthanasia, and they just scraped them onto the boats. And that's what they did to them. And certain counties are worse than others. I think the northern counties did better. A few years ago, let's see who's coming up here now. All right, that's the National Library of Ireland. It's two pieces here. It's called NLI. And a few years ago, they put all the Catholic baptisms and marriages online by Catholic parish. If you don't know your Catholic parish, just type into Google Catholic parishes in County Louth, and it'll tell you the Catholic parishes. So you can go there and look up your people, and you can see the actual document, the baptism, the marriage. This is just opened up all of Irish genealogy. It's just amazing. If you are from the southern area of Ireland, at Tulane, there are 16 huge volumes called O'Keefe, rather than by Mr. Casey. And he put his own money up, and he photographed all of the records of Southern Ireland, baptisms, marriages, burials. They're in those 16 volumes. Now, why would you go and look up that when you can go online? Well, if you get information online, it's a little limited. Was it spelled a certain way? You might want to go to the actual records. Crony. Something happened there. Oh, okay. Crony, that's the Public Record Office of Northern Ireland. The British did a better job of keeping track of the northern stuff than they did of the southern stuff. So that would be a source that
there's something that needs to be attended
square
to.
up there. See that?
Oh, okay.
All right. So if people come from Belfast or one of the 6 northern counties, you might want to contact and see what Prony has to offer you online. The Evanston family, this is my friend Sandy Young, and the Evanston family, the Evanstons came from Thurles, County Tipperary. He was married, and he brought his wife and 3 little boys, and they came to the East Coast, worked their way across to Kentucky. And that's where they settled for several generations down through my friend. Now, he generated a lot of records. He was in a commercial venture. And so there's even this giant family story about the Evanstons in Kentucky. So you always want to look and see on Google, is there like O'Haire family, and see if there's something already printed there. Are there any books, in Amazon written about my family? So we're just going to go on here. So this is the Evanstons. Pretty family picture, isn't it, darling? No mother. No mother. Something happened in Kentucky. She got back on the boat. She got back to the East Coast, got back on the boat, and went to Ireland, lived with her family, and died in Ireland. They never could figure out why. But that's what she did. This, I think, is from, pardon? Try clicking. Oh, did we do the penal laws already?
Yes.
Okay, so that's that. One of the things about Mr. Evanston Martin, so Sandy and her mother Sis, a darling lady, they go to Ireland to find the family home and meet the people. And so they find in Thurles that they have a pub, and they meet at the pub with the family and say, come on out to the dairy farm. So they have a dairy farm. So they go out to the dairy farm and everything. And that's where they had to get a dog license, which a lot of people did, because they had some kind of farm or something that they needed a dog around, because you thought, well, they didn't have food, how could they afford dog food, you know? But it was for economic purposes. So one of the things that is unusual about the Everson family is because they had a pub, they had to buy liquor. So there's something called the Guinness Trade Ledgers, 1860 to 1960, and there's Thomas Everson's name, and he's buying liquor. And so they actually kept a record of him buying liquor, Guinness. These are some other records. This has to do with Martin. Martin, he was convicted of something, and which they convicted everybody and sent to Australia. And so the Everstons are down in Australia, and your people could easily be in Australia. They might have gone, served 7 years. You could ask for your wife and kids to come to Australia and settle down there, or you could go back to Ireland and settle back where you came from. This particular paper is actually, some of these are 1809, Tipperary. You can see the Everstons are all here. The most important records that we have today on Ireland is the 1911 census, the 1901 census, the Griffiths valuation, which is the late 1840s to 1850s, the tithe allotment, this is all on your handout, the tithe allotment, 1820s to 1837, and the rebellion of 1798. These are important because Ireland lost all of their censuses. The English took them, stored them in the post office, and then when the rebels hid in the post office, the English firebombed the post office and destroyed all of the censuses. Couple partials still exist. Then they had censuses after that time that were stored, and they decided they would turn them into pulp. So they pulped those censuses. So the tithe allotment, the Griffiths, you say, well, the Griffiths, you know, my people have already left. That's true, but they didn't all leave. The fact that the Everstons have a pub and a dairy farm today tell you that not everyone left. That's very unusual. Usually you got a little house and that was it. Maybe a little outhouse too, office building, but to have a dairy farm, there was something going on there, and they had been in that area for a long, long time. So you look at the 1911, 1901 census for the town land in the county in Ireland. Just type it into Google, pops up free, and you'll see people with your name. Now, a lot of times people say, I have people here tonight say, well, it was O'Haggerty or Haggerty or just no O'Haggerty. The information that you're getting is secondhand. All of it. The census is secondhand. You don't know who gave that information. Your people weren't home, so the neighbor said, oh, I think that old guy's 60. And I think he came from Ireland. Maybe not. I don't know. New York. And so if you didn't do the research and have the original documentation, then you have to be very wary. Do not chase a name. The O, the Mac. Ridiculous. You don't even need to worry about that. You have to look at all of that. Mahoney, Mac, MC, apostrophe, MAC. You have to look because you don't know how that they are filed. Tell me the name of your family.
Done.
Done. Okay. Now, what did I write down?
D-U-N.
Really? Did you see it?
No.
Do you know? I wrote down O'Mahony.
Okay.
So now you're O'Mahony, not done. No one today even looks to see what somebody writes down. That's why you have 10 different name spellings. You know, how about you come to Ellis Island? You got a brogue. It's so noisy, you can't hear anything. And some Polish guy is taking the information. Well, he doesn't know an Irish name for dog. So he just writes down something. You never look. You don't, you know, the Evanstons, she came in it was like Esmeralda was her last name. They somehow worked their way back to find her as an Evanston. But you do not ever look to see how they wrote your name. So that's why you're coming up with so many different names. And the O and Mac, if you go back to the 1600s, everybody's O. The British beat it out of them. Everybody was an O. Where are we now? What is that? This one. This is a report from, I believe, County Clare. And it's the report of what you would get if you paid $250 to $600. And it talks about the family and the marriage registers and things that they lived into, the civil parish, you know, and it might be worth that, but I don't think it's worth that at the beginning at all. I think you have to know, and then there's the Irish, you can type in Irish Heritage Centers and you get a list of them like this. You type in 1901 Census of County Clare, they have it different ways. Some are typed, that's lovely. Some are not. And then this is what a 1911 census looks like. This is, I'm trying to get to the this is the Keenan family. And it's nice and typed, and you can click behind it and see the actual handwritten copy. They're going to tell you whether they're Catholic, Roman Catholic, whether they can read or write. I need to what? What?
That's where you are.
That's where I'm in. Okay. So that was Barney Keenan. And then this is the 1841 census for County Clare. It's a fragment of the original census, but it's a help. And it's very, very detailed, very nice. And that they might be able to help you there with the Heritage Center. So, yes, that's all that I wanted to. Oh, I didn't tell my joke. Wait. This is a good one. I was looking for Irish jokes. I should have called you, Casey. And I couldn't find any. And so I decided I would tell the story about my husband and I when we went to Ireland on our trip. So we were in Ennis, County Clare, and decided to go out to see the cliffs. Called up a little tour company, and here this ancient man comes with a little van loaded in the back with Australian tourists, pulls up, we get in, Larry sits over here. I'm, of course, right behind the driver, and he puts on music. And I thought, that's kind of odd for a tour guide. Usually they start talking to you right away. So we go to the first stop, and he stops the music, and he says, okay, I have to say this laughing. Well, okay, well, we all looked and said, what is this going on, you know? And it was like the heavens opened and a golden light came all over me. And I knew what the problem was. So I turned to the Australian tourists and my husband, and I said, the Alwee Cave will be here 15 minutes, watch your step. Well, my husband knew at that moment that he had married the lady from The Exorcist. And so the guide and I conversed the whole trip. I knew what he was saying because I realized he had a strong brogue and he stammered. So all I had to do was fill in the back half of every word, and was able to do that courtesy of the golden light. You know, so that was one of our fun things that we did in Ireland. And I encourage you all. I know money can be a problem sometimes, and I told Stephen tonight through my beautician, she swears by this site, and the name of the site is Gate One Travel. And for the price of not even an air ticket, you can get you can get flights and a week in Ireland very, very cheaply. Yep. She has gone through them and done things, and so I strongly suggest that. I would like to take your questions. And when you go to Ireland, this is what you have. You have to do your homework. Take your story couple of pages, different copies. I know Casey went to Mitchelltown. And so you think, oh, if I could just get those records from the priest, if I could just get in that rectory and get to those records, I see it. And then you finally knock on the door and the housekeeper comes and she says, oh, Father's over in Liverpool for 2 weeks on vacation. And you've spent all that money and you can't get to what you want. So that's why you want to do it in your online thing. When you go to Ireland, this is what you do. You take a sheet and it says reward. I'm looking for John Patrick O'Haire, his brothers and sisters from County Louth. This is my name, call me, reward. Maybe $50 would be fine. What are you going to do with this? Well, you go to the priest, you leave one there, one at the library, one at the Heritage Center, one at the post office. And while you're at the post office, you say, who's the oldest person in this town who might know my people? And he'll tell you. And then you go find that old guy and you get one of these. And so that's what you do. I have said this in talks before, and I've had people come up to me and say, I did exactly that. I found the oldest guy I could find in the town, and that's how I got the information. They are trained to keep everything in their head. I thank you all for coming. I would love to take questions. I haven't found that works too well. So my name and everything is on the last sheet at the bottom. You can call me, you can email me, you can come by my house. You can bring your stuff and we'll look it over. And I'll be happy to work with you anytime. These are the door prizes.
Door prizes, Dale.
Thank you.
Lewis McFall.
Oh, Lewis. Oh, we got something good.
Casey Stewart.
Oh, all my friends.
And Mel Werner.
So I really appreciate it. I hope we can get started, and the next time we do this 5 years from now or something, I hope you'll bring the efforts that you've made, but get started in a week's time. You're going to have everything that you're looking for, even actually in a day if you want to sit there all day long. It's very easy to do now, especially with the records that are online. It's great to see the records coming out of Ireland, and I guess they're going to make some money on it. I would hope they would. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We do have about 10 minutes left. Do you want to take any questions, or you want to just have people come up and talk?
Well, if somebody has an easy question, I'll do that. If you want to come. Yes.
Well, by the way, easy but not easy. My great grandfather, on the 3 censuses in the U.S. Census that I find it, he gives a different age when he came and a different years on all 3 censuses. On the last one, he says he's from 1930, Northern Ireland. He's still living.
Okay, if he lived through the 1900 census, did he live that long?
Here in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
His birthday is going to be on that census, month and year. That's probably your best guess. The other ones, they can be 5 years here, 10 years there. Yeah. So don't worry about that. Now, when he became a citizen, he might have said how old he is, but I doubt it. And even though some records are more reliable than others, the worst is the funeral homes. Don't waste your time. And he might have had his age, but if you can find out where he came from in Ireland. Don't go yet. Come see me. Don't go yet. Bring your stuff and come see me. Okay?
Me?
Yeah, you have my address.
Yes.
Call me. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Y'all, if we could just get a little quiet. Sorry, we can just want to take a couple of quick questions and then we'll wrap up. But go ahead.
Okay. What happens for our families? We have a very common first and last name to even find a record. No middle initial that we know of.
That's common.
And so, and then I've seen where the date of the year of birth is one spot is 1 year, another spot is something else.
Are we
So
talking
how
about
do you even
New Orleans?
begin to
Are we talking about New Orleans people?
They came from Ireland. No, they came, well, we think they came from Killarney or that area.
But where did they settle in the United States?
Here in New Orleans.
Well, then that's good because we got a lot of stuff on.
But the person died here. They came over with 2 of their brothers and they came as a group and they came here. But one said supposedly 3 brothers came together. But when you say immigration, one's got 1 year, one's got another. I mean, it seems like the information's
Is shaky. It's
Yeah.
shaky. That's why some documents are better than others. I think the naturalization, they're gonna tell the truth on the naturalization, especially if they applied to be citizens as soon as they got here. That might be a good thing. Their obituary, still shaky, word of mouth. You know, I would want to get back to Ireland to get their baptismal and marriages. I personally have, Mary O'Haire married Bartholomew Woods, and I have the 1842 actual, picture of their marriage license in Ireland. And they have both of their boys were baptized in Ireland, and then they all came to the Niagara Falls area.
But that would be, I would have to find my grandfather's parents, my great-grandparents, and I can't even find him. So how am I gonna find
Have you
them?
been into Ancestry looking at the family trees?
I tried, but I mean, it's just.
Well, call me and come on over and bring your stuff.
because I
We'll
can't-
start there.
Yeah, we can't, I couldn't backtrack.
And the backup to Ancestry is FamilySearch.org, which is the Mormon site. I always go there next, and then I go to find a grave, you know, which is good, and then newspapers.com, looking for obituaries and newspapers all over the country. That is about,
It's more the Irish part. I mean, when they get here, he marries here, he dies here, but it's that first part to even
yes,
figure out.
yes, that's why you have to use the Irish records that I'm recommending. The 1911 census, the 1901 census, the Griffiths, the tithe. The Griffiths and the tithe should bring you back. What is the name?
Last name was Clifford. It's really English, but they ended up in Ireland.
Well, because they
Yeah.
sent them over there.
Clifford.
That should be an easy name to find. That
Well,
should
when
be-
you put that name in, his first name was Michael. So
You
you gotta
know, don't be waylaid by that. You know, Murphy's the biggest name in Ireland and in the United States. So if you're not a Murphy, you're all right, you're all right. But that should be easy to trace. That should be easy to trace.
Because we found lots of them, but.
Just call me. Bring your stuff over.
Okay.
Anybody else coming over?
Sheila, we have one question from someone on the
Oh,
Zoom.
okay, the Zoom people.
Okay. So the question is, my 3rd great-grandfather, Henry Doyle, stated that he was from Virginia. He was born about 1823 to a man named Doyle and a slave woman named Suzanne. He came to Louisiana to St. John, the Baptist parish, and married a girl in St. Charles Parish in 1857. He was a porter on a ship. He moved to New Orleans and raised a successful family. We can track him here in New Orleans, but not in Virginia. People believe he was Irish. He wanted to and did identify as Creole. I know this is a long shot.
No, that's all right. The Doyles, I do have some information about the Doyles through my friend Pat Doyle Larkin. When you can trace your people going back to the East Coast into the 1700s or even the 1600s, all of that has been done and printed somewhere. You just have to tap into it. You don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. If you can get back to the 1700s on the East Coast, Virginia, that's all available. I just met a new friend in our organization, and I was helping her get started. And I traced her family back to a wonderful story. Well, it's not so wonderful, that her people were coming from Virginia with 25 people with them. And they let their guard down when they got to the Midwest, and the Indians massacred all of them but 5. They kidnapped the girl, who was about 8. She lived as an Indian wife for 17 years and then escaped and married a white man and had a family. When her father died, You know, he was evidently spared. In his will, he said, and I leave 1/5 of my holdings to my daughter, Polly, who's a captive of the Indians if she ever gets out. Wonderful story, wonderful story. And there are stories like that. If you're Irish or English and you get to come over in a boat in the 1600s to the East Coast, you're gonna be related to very, very important people in England. I can guarantee that. You know, because they were sending their sons, or their sons were leaving, or, you know, they were prisoners or something, but they came from lovely people, and that's in England. So you never know where it's going to end up. And just keep writing it down. Photocopying is all the pictures you can get your hands on. You know, those big pictures you have over your fireplace, the relatives, you know, I always wanted a him and a her for my fireplace. Well, how do you do that? You take your phone, and you take a picture, then you take this blueprint place and say, blow it up 20 by 40 or something, and you get your people, you know, because they're never going to let you take that photo off the wall, ever. Anybody else? Did I answer that person's question? Maybe?
I think so. I don't know, Catherine, if you can,
Tell her
Yours
she
or not,
can
but-
call me on the phone.
yeah,
Tell her she can call
we'll
me.
circulate Sheila's information if you have any questions.
It's on the bottom of the handout.
Yeah, I think if we don't have, oh, Michelle, you didn't.
It was such a good presentation. I hope that those of you who are on Facebook will go to our Facebook page, the Genealogy Research Society of New Orleans, and like that you were here tonight. It's a picture of Sheila and our president Stephen and all of us, but from there. So if you wouldn't mind going to that Facebook page and liking it so that others can see it. Thank you.
And like Michelle mentioned, that's a great way to keep up with us. If you're interested in the organization and you want to see what our upcoming presentation is going to be, so please, you know, check us out on Facebook, the Genealogy New Orleans. Anyway, but thank you all for coming tonight.